Hi everyone, welcome to the Mum Boss Method podcast. I've just realised that my microphone is really far away from me, so I'll try and move that closer without deafening everyone, because that won't be fun. We have a special guest with us today. You know how much I love a guest podcast because it means I do less talking. Jenna Beadle, welcome to the Mum Boss Method podcast. How are you on this Tuesday?
I'm good, thank you. Thank you for having me.
Pleasure. Jenna and I have just done a live in her Facebook group, and now she's here on my podcast. So lots of collaboration going on today. We love a bit of collaboration. So Jenna, why don't you tell everyone who you are and what you do so that they understand why you're here?
Yeah, no, that's fine. So hi everybody, I'm Jenna Beadle. So I'm a life coach, but my background's in social work. So I've been a social worker sort of the last 10 years. I'm a mum of three. I've got a stepdaughter as well. So we've got quite a busy household. I run the Powerhouse Mums Club on Facebook. So with my background as a social worker, I'm very much about supporting mums to have a better relationship with themselves so they can be a positive role model for their children. So it's very much about breaking some of them negative cycles, break some of that negative conditioning we've had as a child, so we don't pass that on to our children, so they have a different experience to us, really. And it's about sort of working with mums to sort of increase their positive sense of self, identity, that kind of thing. So then sort of we can role model this to our children. Mm-hmm. So that's kind of me and kind of my business, really. So yes, so I deal with a lot of sort of toxic relationships, sort of mums that very much realise that they've come from sort of narcissist kind of parents, that kind of thing, and how it's impacted on them. And the stories we kind of get told, really.
Yeah, okay. Really interesting. And I want to dig into that toxic relationship a little bit in just a second. But how did you come to doing what you're doing now? Like, what's your story? And I know you're a social worker, but
yeah,
what made you decide that this is where you wanted to help?
I think because I've done sort of social work for so many years, and I've kind of seen the cycle repeat itself, over generations. And it's kind of that we are very much conditioned, but we go by what's normal to us. And I've started to realise over a long time that I kind of very much followed my mum's path in terms of how I've used myself, but also the relationships I got into. I have been in abusive relationships, not only with myself, but with other people. And I think it was more about I had to realise that I had to make a change to ensure that my children don't walk my path. I've done that. I've done all that trauma. I want to ensure as best as I can, because I've got a decision here, that my children don't walk it. So it's about I needed to improve the relationship I had with me. And I am the ultimate tick box exercise kind of girl. I have done mindset for years, but I've done it all on a superficial level. I've done this, I've done that, and I would feel better after a little while and then not feel any better. So I really realised after having my second baby, I suffered quite severely with postnatal depression. And I realised then that I actually needed to go back and really sort of look inwards. And I started to realise that I picked social work for a career because I looked outwards. I never looked in because that was too scary to look inwards. But if I need to sort of show my children to be able to validate themselves, especially with how social media is blowing up now, I need to ensure that I don't sort of view myself as ugly, as fat. And we say all these things, and we don't even know we're saying them half the time, but then kind of our children hear these kind of things and repeat them, and that's how you're meant to talk about yourself. So I realised I needed to change some of that, especially when I was suffering, and it was kind of the only way to stop some of this suffering is to actually deal with it rather than just put a sticky plaster on it. So I think that's kind of why I'm so passionate about it.
So it's really interesting, and I'm just going to pull on an example that I come back to time and time again in the work that I do: scale weight. Where did we all learn to become obsessed with a number on a scale?
Yeah.
Our mothers.
Yeah. Very
Right?
much so.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so often I see two extremes. More often than not, people say to me, my mum was forever on a diet. Growing up, all I remember is my mum saying she was on a diet. Or my mum is tiny, diddy, a size 4, a size 6. She's never had to worry about what she eats. And so either women follow their mums, or they feel they're the polar opposite of their mums. But this obsession with the scale weight has come from our mothers and our grandmothers, and so
definitely.
I'm just relating that back to the work that I do and the view that we have of ourselves on our own body image.
Definitely. But it's becoming a lot bigger now because of Instagram. That's my worries for the next generation. I just want them to be able to validate themselves rather than look for outside influences. You know, you can only get on Instagram if you look like this, if you're size 6, if you're whatever, because that's not reality. And kind of teenagers in particular have got so much expectations to live up that we've kind of accepted as a society. And I think it's changing some of that by saying it's not reality, that's not real. And I think that's what's more scary.
You're like bringing all these things to the forefront of my mind, right? So my son's got a girlfriend. I mean, I say girlfriend. People who aren't watching this, I'm doing the speech marky things. Girlfriend. He's 12. Like, do you know what I mean? It's not really a girlfriend, but he obviously messages her, and I said, oh, can I see a picture of her, because God forbid I'm allowed to meet her. And all of the pictures that he's got of her on her phone, she's pulling a funny face. And I said, why has she just not got a picture of her smiling? And then when I look through his phone, none of the pictures that him and his friends send each other are they just smiling. They all have to be pulling funny faces. And it really struck me that they don't want people to just see them in their natural state.
No.
They have to be pulling a funny face. And it's really sad.
It is. And I think they have a lot more to live up to than, you know, we ever had, you know, like, because there weren't internet about when I were growing up. So I think that's my biggest worry. And I think that's why me and you've both got this strong mission about sort of helping the next generation, because we talk a lot about mindset, but actually, what is it? You know, it's kind of that key word, isn't it? You know, but I think if anything we can teach our children, it's more about them being able to validate and they're okay with who they are. They don't have to live up to any other expectations, because we are people pleasers. We do like to feel accepted.
Yeah. But that validation and that work has to start with us, because how can you possibly teach your children to accept themselves for what they are? Like, we look at our children and they're beautiful and they're gorgeous and they're perfect. But how can we teach them that they are and to accept themselves as they are if we can't do the same for us?
Definitely. And there's a big research now to say that whatever we verbalize to our children, it doesn't actually go in, it's what we show them. So if we stand in the mirror in front of them, not even knowing, saying, oh, look at the state of my hair, and oh, I look at the state of what I'm wearing, I'm fat, I'm ugly, whatever that may be, that's what they will pick up, rather than actually you just saying to them, but you're beautiful, because we're contradicting that message. But if people say, I look like you, mum, but you're calling yourself fat. But so if I look like you, you're calling yourself fat, how can then I be beautiful? It's that kind of mixed messages that we give.
I know, it's so true. It's so true. And it's so scary. It's so scary. And that, I don't want to go down the social media tangent, but I am going to say two things, because I'd be quite interested in your thoughts on this. So It's really tricky. And I know your children are younger than mine, but my one. But, you know, it was really difficult for us to decide to give him a phone. So he got a phone when he went into year 6 because he was allowed to start walking to and from school. And so I believe he needs a phone. But then all his friends are on social media and they all use TikTok and they all use Snapchat. They don't phone each other anymore. They don't WhatsApp. They don't text. They Snapchat each other. And he's not old enough to have either of those. But he was saying to us that is how my friends talk to each other. So if I can't have Snapchat, I can't talk to my friends because they won't message me, they won't WhatsApp me. So that was really, really difficult. But we've got some really strict boundaries around. And he's recently pushed those boundaries a little bit. So we've brought them in again. But the other thing that I'm really quite clear on in my business is, you see a lot of people doing what I do and they post hours and hours of content of them in the gym, in, tiny gym wear, looking all tanned and bronzed up and, bum pictures and stuff. Now, I could probably do that and get myself loads more views on my Instagram and loads more views on my TikTok. But I'm a 43-year-old mum who is busy, has a house to run and a business to run. I want to get into the gym. I want to do my workout and I want to get home. I don't have time for setting up a camera and getting a bum shot. But also, it's not real life.
No,
it's not real life. And so there's two really clear sides to me. And maybe some people listening are thinking, well, Chrissy, actually I'd love to see you working out a little bit more. But I work with real women who don't have hours and hours of time to be in the gym, who don't have enough sleep or enough time to end up sustaining that kind of figure. I can't sustain that kind of figure for months and months and months. So two sides to that, like the kids sides and the kind of the boundaries we put around our kids, but also what we portray. I am 43. I can't compete with personal trainers who are 23 who haven't had kids and don't have those responsibilities and have all that time on social media to put those things up. I just wondered what your opinions on those two things were.
I think in terms of sort of your son and sort of Snapchat and that kind of thing, that's come up quite a lot, especially for us this weekend as well, because kind of my nieces and things were on sort of websites that maybe they shouldn't be on, and we all had to have a serious conversation about actually what the dangers of that were. So if anything, if I was to go back to my old role, what I would recommend to people is actually having these conversations. And I think sometimes as mums, we try and protect our children, rightly so. But I think what's age appropriate, we also need to be very aware with them actually what the dangers were, because I had to be quite blunt with them in terms of the website that they were on is very much for sexual harm, child exploitation, all the rest of it. And I thought, we need to be honest and open here what the dangers were. And because I got a childlike response back of, well, why do people create them sort of websites? Because there's lots of people out there that actually buy them sort of images, and all that websites. And I think this is the reality. We can't stop these things, but our children actually need to be aware of actually what potentially because technology is increasing every day. We're not going to stop them. No. So it's more about them being very aware. And the biggest thing, Chrissy, is for me is we override this gut instinct. We've all got it. It's there to keep you safe. We've all got it, but we override it for one thing or another. And when I've always overrided mine, it's got me some sort of, sticky situations, really. And I think that's what we need to relay to our children. is that there is things out there, but it's having these open communications, like you said, set boundaries, you know, that kind of thing. There was a big issue the other day about should we still look through our teenagers' phone. For me, I think we should, because I would rather keep my child safe and me and them have a bit of a discussion about sort of their privacy and all the rest of it, especially if you're paying for the phone bill and all that kind of thing. You know, that communication needs to be back and forth. So I think if it means that there's something that's telling you that you're worried about your child, then yes, I would definitely have a look through their phone. But in terms of the other thing about sort of people posting images that isn't reality, you know, other sort of gym goers, that kind of thing. We were laughing about this the other day because we went on a day out and these images came up on sort of Facebook. Well, it was like we've gone on 2 different days out, because I'm thinking that was a 5-minute shot of something that I actually went to the toilet, and I came back and I'm thinking I don't remember any of them. So to the outside, to the outside world, we'd had an amazing day, and we did, but I don't remember any of that 5-minute snapshot. You know, so, and that's kind of, people will only show you what they actually want you to see rather than actually what the reality is. And I think going back to kids, mums, whatever, we do like to keep up with the Joneses, but always keep in mind that's like a snapshot of somebody's life. That's not 5 minutes before when everyone's having a meltdown and nobody will sit down and have the tea. And, you know, that's reality, isn't it?
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, for sure. Thanks for indulging me with those 2 topics there. Okay, so something that you mentioned and we talked about before was toxic relationships. Now, I think this is a really important topic, and I think that you can have lots of toxic relationships. Actually, what we've talked about so far for the first 15 minutes of this is can fit under the guise of toxic relationships. You can have toxic romantic relationships. You know, I have worked with many women who have been in narcissistic relationships. I have friends that have been in narcissistic relationships. You can have toxic friendships. You can have toxic relationships with your phone, you know, with social media. You can have toxic relationships with food, with your body, with alcohol, everything, right? But I would just love to hear a bit from you about, you know, what is a toxic relationship? Because I think personally, and I don't know what you think, but, and this is really hard as a coach, you hear someone relay something back to you and you have to, I can't say that's really toxic, or that's narcissistic, or that is not a friend. That's not what I can do. I can't do that. But help the audience to identify, what do we mean by a toxic relationship?
For me, a toxic relationship is usually anything that makes you feel unhappy, unsafe, unworthy, you know, you're not valued, respected, harmful. Like we've talked about earlier, that gut instinct, when that starts running, you know, and you're constant, like you've talked before, if you're constantly tired, exhausted, you know, it has a massive impact on your health, your well-being, that kind of thing. But usually a toxic relationship is something that starts with you. So the true saying is, you know, how can you expect anybody to love you, validate you, that kind of thing, if you don't do it for yourself, because you don't know actually what you're expecting. So for me, it's more about mistreatment. That's the biggest thing. So have a look at sort of your values. Are they in line with kind of, are you being treated in alignment to that? You know, does somebody make you feel good? But this is also you. You know, we do, most of the time we have a toxic relationship with ourselves. And unfortunately, there is people out there that kind of manipulate sort of that sort of feeling in you. You know, if you're feeling unworthy, whatever, then people will come along and manipulate kind of that feeling that you have in yourself. And unfortunately, that's kind of how the start of domestic abuse relationships start. And that's why, you know, we've talked earlier about sort of allowing children to have that self-validation, so they're actually setting their own boundaries, then they're setting healthy boundaries. So if somebody's treating them how they don't want to be treated, they have enough value in themselves to be like, no, thank you. So that's my biggest thing, is the toxic relationship is very much, if something is making you feel worthless, nobody has a right to do that. Even you don't have a right to do that to yourself, if that makes sense. You are on this world for so much more than to feel worthless.
Yeah. And like we say, that doesn't have to be a toxic romantic relationship. It can be a friendship. It can be
anything.
Your boss, parents, colleagues, anyone, and yourself. Yeah, for sure. So what are the 3 most powerful tools or tips that you have that you use with women to help them?
I think there's 3 things, and they kind of all relate, which we've kind of touched a bit on. So my top one is healthy boundaries. So it's sort of looking at sort of what things you say yes to that you maybe actually want to say no to, but it's kind of self-awareness. So sort of looking at actually what things you want to go to, what you don't want to go to. And it's also, you have a choice how people treat you. So if people don't treat you how you're wanting to be treated, then it's okay to kind of, which kind of links to the next one about decluttering. You should do this so often, and it's okay to not have them parents in your life that, bring you no benefit, make you feel negative, or negative cycles, friendships, environments. Review these. And if people no longer make you feel good, as you start increasing your confidence, your self-esteem, naturally you'll start to shred these people anyway, because they don't align with actually currently how you feel at the moment. Which kind of then links to the biggest thing, is the resilience. I talked a bit about this today. So resilience is very much about sort of, we all go through difficulties, traumas, that kind of thing. And the resilience is something that you can build that allows you to bounce back after sort of traumatic events, that kind of thing. But resilience allows you to sort of problem solve, kind of, but it's something we learn as children. And that's why I'm very much a big thing about, you teaching your children to build that resilience within themselves, so they are able to make these decisions themselves. They don't have to look outside somewhere else. A bit like you and your son in Snapchat. If he sees something he doesn't like, he's got that confidence in the relationship with you that he can come and talk to you about it, and that's kind of what I'm promoting.
Yeah, absolutely. And I love all of those, but decluttering, I think, is really powerful. And I think this whole self-awareness piece and linking into your gut instinct and your intuition, right? So like, for those of you listening, have you ever received a message from someone, or you see their name flash up on your phone, or you see they've posted something on social media and it just doesn't make you feel comfortable? And it could be because you think, oh, I'm going to look at that and feel inadequate, or I'm going to look at that and feel like, even a bit jealous, or a bit, oh, it's easy for her, or whatever, or that person's phoning you or messaging you and you're just like, oh, I'm just going to ignore that for as long as possible. That tells you there's something wrong with that relationship, and it tells you you might need to declutter. And by the way, I don't feel decluttering has to be done forever.
No.
You can just step away from someone for a little while. The mute button on social media and on WhatsApp chats are brilliant. I think, you just have to mute someone, and they don't know that you can't see you can't see that. And because a lot of the women I work with, when I challenge them on kind of curating their social media, they say, oh, there's this one person that whenever I see their post, I'm just like, oh, they have it all, and it triggers me. But if I unfollow them, they're going to see I've unfollowed them, or they'll know. Just mute them then. Just mute them until you feel like you can deal with them a bit better.
And I think a bit like what you were saying earlier about being self-aware, there is people out there, I call them emotional vampires. People might have other names for them, but you know the people I'm talking about. When you get home, you think absolutely exhausted, I could do with a nap. They're the sort of people that you need to be questioning, actually, how do they benefit me? Or the people that just talk at you.
Yeah.
Well, I ain't got time for people just, conversation's a two-way thing.
Yeah, they take more than they give.
Yeah, that's the ones.
Yeah, absolutely. And it feels really good, I think, to be able to curate your whole life a little bit. And just back to the setting boundaries, something that I say to people a lot is no is a complete sentence. No, you don't even have to say no because, or no, I don't want to. You can just say no.
Yeah, but people really struggle with that, because we struggle with that. We need to justify ourselves, so people really, it takes a lot of work, that, no, but you only need to say it once,
Yeah, I have one of my clients, Kirsty, has really been practicing saying no recently, because she's got a lot on. She's got, I'm not going to say on the podcast what she's doing because it's not kind of in the ether yet, but she's got a lot on. And so we started her practicing saying no, and now she loves saying no, because it empowers you, doesn't it? It empowers you. Absolutely empowers you. Yeah, that's great. Brilliant. Have you got any other pearls of wisdom or anything else you'd like to share?
I think it's more just being okay with who you are. I think that's the biggest thing, is because we don't get taught to actually, be okay with our successes and that kind of thing. We kind of teach children from very little, they can be whatever they want to be, celebrate who you are, and then it kind of get missing somewhere in the adulthood. So like you said, on my life, even if it's just a couple of changes, celebrate them. You've achieved them.
Celebrate your wins. Yeah, for sure. Jenna, where can people find you?
So I've got a vlog on YouTube, Jenna Beadle's coaching, or I've got the Powerhouse Mums Club on Facebook, so please come and join me.
Yeah, I'll make sure that the links are in the show notes. No problem at all. It's been really great to talk to you. Thank you so much for sharing all your knowledge and insight with everyone. I think it's going to be really beneficial.
Thank you for having me.
No problem. Right, everyone, make sure that you give this a listen, you give it a rate, and you go and find Jenna in all of the places that I've linked in the show notes. And I will see you next week. Goodbye.
See you later. Bye.